PRX.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary, it's time for the podcaster who wants to remind you that even though you see it in the morning, it starts in the evening, that morning dew. But it's sleeping, and then like when you're sleeping. I think they just call it morning dew because you see it in the morning, right? Because I guess because you say, but they say, I've been here all evening, dew. This podcaster, that's what I prefer it be called. And we'll start a referendum to say, I've been here all evening, dew. Except, Scoots, when you look at they say, oh, well, really, it is morning dew. I didn't realize it. Thanks for showing me the science on that, duologist. I've been schooled in duology. He said, okay, I realize that, just having fun. Like a dreamy bed, like a dewy tear from relief. Bedtime's here, and I'm trying to bring it to a point because it's time. What am I talking? A new listener, you might say, "What is it? What in the goodness?" And it'd say, "You're right. It's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast to put you to sleep." Hey, everybody, Scoots, and I don't know how you're listening to Sleep With Me right now, but don't you want to be listening to the show in the most comfortable way possible? How about with a little bit of a Sleep With Me swag on your forehead? So, I mean, and maybe anybody else, say, oh boy, sleeping with my boyfriend here. Well, the most comfortable way to listen to Sleep With Me is with sleep phones, and you could get Sleep With Me branded sleep phones at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep-phones. It's amazing, comfortable way to listen to Sleep With Me. They have wireless sleep phones. They have corded sleep phones. They have wireless with wireless charging sleep phones. So you don't need your phone there. And you won't keep your partner awake or your pet awake. They're great for running. They cover your ears. You could some people even pull them down over their eyes. And you could get those at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep-phones. Treat yourself in the new year, because I don't know which way you're listening to Sleep With Me now. Don't you want to listen the most comfortable way? That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep-phones, and use Sleep With Me, one word, Sleep With Me at checkout for $5 off. Thanks, everybody. All right, everybody, it's time to talk about tonight's sponsor, Helix. Get over there and take their Helix quiz at helixsleep.com/sleep. And I love my Helix. I don't like traveling because I don't like to be without my Helix Dusk Luxe because I sleep so good. Helix is a premium mattress brand, provides tailored mattresses based on your unique sleep preferences. Helix has 14 unique mattresses, including luxury models, mattress for big and tall sleepers, mattress for kids. And the way you pick the right mattress is you take that Helix quiz. You'll find your perfect mattress in under 2 minutes. Your personalized mattress is shipped straight to your door free of charge. You get to test out your Helix in your own home. They offer a 100-night risk-free trial, so you could try out your new Helix mattress, see how your body adjusts, and if you decide it's not the best fit, you're welcome to return it for a full refund. And everybody's unique. Everybody sleeps differently. That's why Helix has several different mattress models to choose from, each designed for specific sleep positions and feel preferences. And like I said, when I took that Helix quiz, I got matched with the Helix Dusk. I got the Helix Dusk Luxe because I sleep on my side. I sleep on my stomach. I like to sleep cool. It fits all those needs, checks all the boxes, man, and more so than that because the proof is in the sleep, right? Not only is it the best mattress I've slept on, but setup's fast and easy, delivered straight to your door in a box for free, and you get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. If you don't love it, I know you will. They'll pick it up for you, give you a full refund. All right, so get over there. Helix is offering up to 20% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners. Go to helixsleep.com/sleep. This is their best offer yet. It won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts now. Thanks, everybody. All right, everybody, this is an all-intro episode. These come out on long weekends. We might put out, if you love all-intro episodes, $10 and $20 patrons get 2 all-intro episodes a month in addition to the ones we put out. But if you love all-intro episodes, let me know about it, because we're looking at how we're going to handle the 2023. Maybe we'll put out more in addition to those ones you can get on Patreon, too. But, yeah, I hope you enjoy the long weekend, and here's an all all-intro episode. And if you want more or you want to support the show, $10 and $20 patrons get 2 all-intro episodes a month, an all-night compilation episode a month, a bonus episode every single month, in addition to ad-free episodes twice a week. $5 patrons get those as well as 2 story-only episodes. And you can support the show at sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. And now I'm happy to present Scooter after Scooter after Scooter, introing the show. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. It's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical, something you're thinking about, something you're experiencing physically, something that's coming up or that's going on emotionally, or travel, changes in routine, baffling stuff, whatever it is that's keeping you awake. I'd like to take your mind off of that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send my voice, and I know I mentioned do at the top of the show. I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. I just slowed down my superfluous. They say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Do you have something? Slow it down. What do you got there? Oh, is this one of those ones where I'm a boy with a wagon walking too fast, sir? That doesn't look like a wagon to me, son. Oh, no, this is just a superfluous tangent. What in the haymaker are you talking about, lad? Wait, sir, have you ever been a PE teacher? Because you just talk exactly like 90% of PE teachers I've come across. Son, I'm an authority figure, and I'm here to figure out what you're... Well, sir, maybe I'll probably forget to come back to you, and hopefully I'll be sure to mention that movie, Neverending Story or something, because... but I got to get to my new listeners. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send my lulling, soothing tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents, as you saw. What I'm going to do is I'm trying to create a safe place where you could set aside all the stuff that's keeping you awake, right? I said that. And it's ideally a safe place where I could just earn or create or foster a little bit of relaxation, a little bit of space for you, wherever you are, to get a little bit more comfortable, to get a little bit more settled, or to just be where you are, but to kind of listen to me, because maybe something else is going on. You know what I mean? It's kind of this weird, this is a safe place besides what's keeping you awake. And the reason it's a safe place is kind of counterintuitive, because I send my voice across the deep dark night and all that stuff. And a couple of things, if you're new, you don't really need to listen. This is one of the few podcasts in few safe places. Once it's established, you don't got to pay attention to it. You say, okay, so I don't have to, this is a podcast, so aren't I supposed to listen so I can fall asleep? Can kind of listen. You can listen, or you could barely listen. You kind of see how it goes. You might want to move over to a side of the safe place where you say, well, I can kind of hear you talking. So if if you're new, see how it goes, I guess would be my thing. But no pressure to listen. There's also no pressure to fall asleep. The weird thing is, this is a podcast that's kind of here as you fall asleep. I know I say the podcast to put you to sleep because it's so flashy. But it's more of the podcast to be here as you drift off, that you barely kind of listen, listen to it if you need to. Now, the reason the shows are an hour is to give you plenty of time. So if you can't sleep, here's the thing. I make the show just as much for the percentage of listeners that can't sleep as the listeners that fall asleep in 5 minutes. So I guess, I don't know. I guess I don't know what my point was. Oh, my point was you don't need to listen to me, and there's no pressure to fall asleep. Also, if you're new structurally, what to expect. I'm sorry, you're the authority figure wondering what that superfluous tangent is I'm walking around with? Okay, I just wanted to tell you about the structure of my podcast. What's a podcast? Oh, boy. It's something you might enjoy. Audio. In this case, it's a pod. Starts off with an intro. Oh, like WMAC radio. I'm not familiar with that, but did they say WMAC, WMAC radio that puts the Mac in the whack or something? They say something. Oh, that's how they start their shows. Oh, you like Rudy Tooty? That's your favorite DJ? That's Rudy Tooty. Cool. Do they play like what songs of the circus or songs of carnival? Is that like is that the Happy Fun Carnival Hour? Oh no, it's a serious talk. Okay, well we don't talk. That's great to know. Yeah, so this show starts off with an intro, but it's a little bit different than that because the intro is a part of the podcast. It's a show within a show. How can there be a show within a show? Well. It takes some imagination, I guess. The intro, here's a question for you. You see how I'm, I guess because you're an authority figure, you just kind of walk, like, okay, this is it. Yeah, if you weren't an authority figure and you couldn't just walk up to people in their imagination and say, what are you doing leading that thing around? It looked like a wagon until I stopped and looked at it. If you weren't an authority figure, you'd probably have to kind of lead, if you were curious and you saw a boy walking around with a superfluous tangent on a leash, not a leash, by the way, but I could see how you'd make that mistake. But you weren't an authority figure. You might say, and some people might ease their way into the conversation. They might say, hey, is that I mean, usually that's when I'm walking around. That's the usual attempt at rapport building. When I'm walking around with the superfluous tangent, they say, hey, what's that? Because they want to say, is that your pet? But then they start to look at it, and it takes them out. Anyway, so the intro is to ease people into bedtime as part of people's wind-down routine for most listeners. New listeners will just kind of discover how it works for them. But a lot of people start the shows are getting ready for bed, and then they wind down. Maybe they're brushing their teeth. Maybe they're already in bed. Maybe I get a lot of, human-animal interaction. They say, oh, yeah, I'm just getting my pets ready for bed. Maybe it's a family thing. Maybe you're listening, whatever it is. It's just part of easing you into bedtime. Because I guess that's the thing. You can't really, I'm sure maybe for you, and for some people, you could get in bed like an authority figure. And you say, man, I bed like a boss. And I'd say, wait a second, what do you mean by that? Anyway, you say, I bed like a boss. I would go to bed and I slam dunk it. And I'd say, okay, well, we're different, different people probably. Because I need a wind down. I need to ease into bedtime. I need a long runway. I don't bed like a boss. Unless your boss is riding around on a tricycle. We're trying to catch up with the boy that's leading a superfluous meander around. And he's got headphones and he's listening to that station with circus and carnival music. I'm sorry, they even confused me. I know, that was a pointless meander. Yeah, I don't even know what that was. But so I guess that's the intro. It's like it's something familiar. Ideally, it's comforting or reassuring, or you just say, okay, Scoots is here. He's gonna try to make some sense. Probably won't get there. And, it's just just to establish a safe place. I don't know what to tell you. So that's the intro. Then there's some business between the intro and the show. And then there's what comes out? Oh, tonight it's our premiere pilot episode of our episodically modular serial new series. The Adventures of Dr. Triangle and Isosceles is the working title of it. What's a working title? Well, when I think that's going to be the title, but I'm not 100% confident that's going to stay the title. Why have a title at all? Oof. You really do. You really do. Gym teachers, what do you see? Do you see the world as, never mind. I was a PE teacher, so I'm just using you as a, I know. I'm sorry. I apologize. I was wrong. I was wrong. How's it again? I'm sorry. I was wrong. And I'll try to find a new straw person for my, authority. Trying to find a new figure for authority figures to represent them. Okay, I'll just keep referring to you as the authority. Can I at least allude to the fact you have a flat top and, okay, yeah, because I had a flat top once too. So that's the structure of the show. It ends with some thank yous and some good nights. Most new listeners find that the first time they listen, they kind of say, what in the, because the podcast is different than they expected. It's not necessarily apparent at first how it works or if it would even work. And for some people, it doesn't work. So give it a few tries. If it doesn't work for you, go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you, and you can find some other options there. But so that's the structure of the show and what you need to know. And yeah, I'm just walking around with my pointless meander. Yeah, no, that's like one of that's its holding hand. It's not a leash. It's one of its hands for holding. Yeah, it does look a bit yeah, it's tough to kind of see because it's almost like it changes when you look at it. I could see on first impression that you thought it was a wagon because, I'm just leading it around the town square here. But you could kind of see it has a long tail. Yeah, it does have influences of, other forest friends we could talk about or fantasy friends. But yeah, I guess for me, I'm the kind of, I'm the kind of kid walking around, leading around a pointless meander. And you're the kind of person that beds like a boss. I'm sorry, whenever I say beds like a boss, my brain goes somewhere else immediately. And then I say, am I comfortable with that or not comfortable with that? How am I feeling? Because it's complicated, but, but I am aware that there are people that fall asleep as soon as their head hits the pillow. And I would say that is like, you say, man, I dunk on my pillow, your head, right? You just put it down, boom. So that's great for you. So you might not need the podcast, but you might listen to it, for relaxation purposes or, for just say, well, I need something that's a little bit different today. So that's it. I don't know. This was an interesting intro. I'm glad to meet you. I'm very clear that you're one of the authority figures that lives within me. It's one of the many thousands of beings that, join me when I put my head down to rest. I could use somebody that beds like a boss, but anyway, I said, where's that person that says, I bed like a boss, the other, you say, oh, nobody's interested. Okay, well, thanks. So anyway, I'm glad you're here. I'm basically here to keep you company as you drift off because I want to help. I've been there and, not putting my head down and falling asleep right away. Though this morning, just to give you a little bit of taste of hope, I was awake, but I'm not usually a ton of covers person, but it was raining and it was a little bit chilly. And I never noticed this, but I had my, when people say they have their covers pulled up to their chin, my chinny chin. I did. I had my covers pulled up to the hairs on my chinny chin. And it really just felt good. So I don't know if you want to do that now. You could shrink in or you can expand. Sometimes it's good in the breeze of the morning. And of course I said, oof, I don't know. I really felt good. I guess that's rare for me to say, wow, this really feels good. I got my covers pulled up to my chin. I had to laugh. I really did. I said, it was like I caught myself. I was already awake, but I kind of naturally gone into that position. When you're in kind of morning cat mode, And I was, I knew I had to get up, but I wasn't in a total rush. And I just said, well, I feel kind of cozy. And then I said, well, my covers are pulled up to my chin. No wonder. Usually I'd just be like, that's too warm for me. I'd say my shoulders need to breathe. My shoulder, I always talk about kissing your own shoulders as a symbol in an act of self-care. And so I like my shoulders available for kissing at all times. But this morning, my shoulders they weren't demanding fresh air or anything. So anyway, I guess mostly what I'm trying to say is I'm glad you're here. And I work very hard and I strive and I really want to help you fall asleep. And thank you so much for coming by. Oh, and here's a couple of ways we keep the show going. Sleep With Me is brought to you by Progressive. Progressive helps you compare direct auto rates from a variety of companies so you can find a great one, even if it's not with them. Quote today at Progressive.com to find a rate that works with your budget. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. All right, everybody, it is time for my nightly companion. It's time to talk about our sponsor, Air Doctor. And clean air is one of the fastest and easiest ways you can have a positive impact on your health. You can improve the quality of your indoor air with a high-quality air purifier. And then all you have to do is breathe. And that's why you got to check out Air Doctor. You breathe over 20,000 breaths per day. And Air Doctor filters out dangerous contaminants and allergens so your lungs don't have to. Air Doctor uses an ultra HEPA filter that's been independently tested to remove 99.99% of tested bacteria and viruses. And not only that, allergens can vary in size. The average pollen size is 25 microns, but Air Doctor captures particles as small as 0.003 microns in size. That's 100 times smaller than even the HEPA standard. And then they have the new Air Doctor 2000, which is the first affordable purifier that not only removes virtually 100% of airborne particles, but also the vast majority of toxic ozone, volatile organic compounds, and gas in indoor environments. Essentially, it's a smaller, but still very powerful Air Doctor. I use my Air Doctor every single night, every single day. And when I go to bed, I put it on fan speed 2. Then I hit the moon mode button so all the lights go out. And it's there, providing me with fresh air and good sleep all night long. You can hear it in my nose. I'm breathing right through my nose right now. And it gets even better than that because Air Doctor comes with a no questions asked, a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you don't love it, just send it back for a refund minus shipping. And all you need to do is head to airdoctorpro.com and use the promo code SLEEP. And depending on the model, you'll receive up to 35% off. That's up to 35% off. That's airdoctorpro.com and use the promo code SLEEP. airdoctorpro.com, use that promo code SLEEP. Thanks, everybody. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is to create a safe place where you could set aside whatever is keeping you awake. So whether it's thoughts, things you're thinking about, or your mind's thinking about and trying to get your attention about, physical feelings, anything you're experiencing physically or feeling emotionally that might be coming up. I'm going to try to take your mind off of that. What I'm going to do is I got this real nice, safe place set aside here where you can set aside whatever's keeping you awake, like I said. Then what I'll do is send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. Holy cow. You see, I've never seen superfluous tangents for one. But I've never seen, you have your superfluous tangents. They they're different than the normal. You see, they have a low viscosity. They're super fluidity. but a low viscosity. How do you do it, Scoots? And I say, well, I use a slow stirring motion, very slow. I scrape the sides, kind of yeah, that's what I do. That's one of the ways I do it. Creaky dulcet tones, pointless meanders. So basically what the podcast is here for, if you're new, hi, how you doing? I'm glad you're here. I hope I can help this. Now, this podcast, I'll give you a heads up. It doesn't work for everybody, but give it a few tries. I hope it can. I hope it can help. I hope it works for you. The reason I make this show is because I have trouble falling asleep. Sometimes, I deal with the other stuff, waking up, trip stuff, traveling stuff, thoughts, feelings, physical sensations. I got all those things going. And I just make this podcast to kind of take your mind off of that. So if you're new, let me give you a couple of things of what to expect. Podcast is, I usually say it's a little bit different, but that's a mild way of saying it's pretty different than a normal podcast or even a normal sleep, like something like geared towards sleep. It's really like a company, like you say, a company company that's kept, but you don't need to keep. I think maybe I should seal that one up. I don't think I've said that. Sleep with me. It's like company that's kept that you don't need to keep. You say, Scooch, what do you mean? Well, let me try to explain that to you. Let me get to the new listener, though. So the podcast's a little bit different. Structurally, what to expect is show starts off with a few minutes of business. That's how we keep the podcast free. So in this example, it would be like if the company shows up, you say, I want to greet you, right? Well, I guess no, that's different. It's just what we're able to keep the podcast free. You say, well, that's how we keep the porch lights on. And that's how I have these, the place to greet you, is the people that support the show and support the sponsors. So that's not so much important for new listeners as regular listeners. So it starts off with business. Then there's the intro. Which kind of you might get to the point of a company that's kept it, you don't need to keep it right away because the intro is kind of a show within a show. For a lot of people, it's part of their bedtime. I call it the bed down, wind down routine. But as you get into bed, I think a lot of things that don't necessarily work kind of make you feel like, hey, this is going to be quick. I'm going to snap my fingers. I'm going to count to 10. I'm going to jingle some wind chimes and I'm going to go, ooh, Scooby-Doo. And then you're going to be asleep. And I've been doing this a long time. That's how I got these creaky dulcet tones. At one point, my meanders used to have a point, but, dulled off. But so what was my point? The intro is, it's to ease you into bedtime. So if you're not interested in the intro, you just want to get to the part of the show where tonight we'll be talking about Doctor Who, just skip to about 18 or 20 minutes or so. And so there's the intro is like where I talk about the podcast for about 12 minutes and ramble in kind of a monologue type fashion, as we like to say around here, these parts, heavy on the log to have you sawing logs. It's more of just like a friendly banter, just like if you were greeting guests at the house. But here's the good thing. This podcast, that's where it all ends. You don't got to greet me because you just hit play. Now you can say, oh, there's Scooch rambling, but I won't be able to hear you. Even if your partner says, is that pod kid talking nonsense? And then you might say, he's a pod man, dear, without a doubt. And then you can both have a laugh at that. And I wouldn't hear any of that. Just you go ahead, crack yourselves up. You say pod kid, he's more like he's a pod tween. And I'd say, well, that pretty much sums me up. And so, what was my point? So the intro is kind of like a familiar friend that you don't have to entertain. Or that you can talk about in a jestful way, or just wonder about. You say, what's going on with Scoots tonight? I'm not sure. I'm only kind of listening. Well, didn't he just start talking? Well, yeah, but I'm kind of conditioned to just barely listen. That's one of the other things around the show. This is one of the few podcasts you don't need to listen to. you could just kind of be around it. So it's like where the company is kept. You say, well, Scoots is kind of keeping me company, but I don't have to keep him. I don't have to. It's a weird social. It's not a It's a social dynamic without the dynamic parts. You say there's no dynamic. However you say that, there's no dynamics here. Like I said, this is super fluidity at a high viscosity. Oh no, maybe it's a low viscosity. You're right. Thank you. We totally mixed up my mixed up metaphors. But so the intro is a way to introduce you to the show and ease you into bedtime and just kind of goof around. Maybe make bedtime a little bit less serious. Maybe take a little bit of the grouchy poos out of bedtime. Because I know for me, I haven't talked about my brain bots, but a lot of times my brain bots, it is like a bunch of guests showing up. As soon as my head hits the pillow, all of these little unifunction parts of my personality start, I hate to use this word, carping. They say, hey, Drew, how come this? Did you realize our efficiency? We didn't even track our efficiency today. How inefficient is that? And I'd say, okay. And then the sixth grade part of me would say, how come were you the last person in your class ever to kiss a girl? And I'd say, well, I didn't kiss a girl in sixth grade. So technically, no. And then my second and eighth grade saying, so point of order. And I'd say, okay, like I'm trying to go to bed here, actually. And then another part of me would be like, what month is it? When is April 15th? Oh my goodness. And then, there's different parts of us, and they want my attention really like a guest would. And for me, at least, it's really hard to say, hey, listen. I mean, I guess as I've done the podcast, I have learned to say, hey, probably not the best time to discuss this stuff right now. I'm just going to listen to this podcast. But this podcast, let's all and you could snuggle up with them and you say, hey, let's get snuggled here. Scoots is our guest that we don't have to entertain, and he barely entertains us. He doesn't know the difference between high and low viscosity, despite consuming over his lifetime 4,000 hours of motor oil commercials. And my efficiency brain would say, "What? Actually, that's actually holy cow. That's completely accurate." How come that doesn't happen? Like you say, okay, when I'm moving on to the next phase of existence, they'd say, well, let's see, you tried to do this, let's see, I would like that rundown. You say, can we have like a stats component, or can I get a couple infographics and, instead of the whole Peter thing or whatever, or, the limbo, or could we just run through, for maybe 20 years? Because you have all the data up there, I'm assuming. You say, well, let's run through some info. How many hours of motor oil commercials have I consumed? I'd like to see the top 30. I would be interested in that. You say, okay, breakfast cereal's got to be way, way up there. But motor oil, I would put it in the top. I mean, you say, how come that's not an SAT word? And they'd say, well, it's overused. That's why, viscosity. I mean, it's probably hard to spell. So maybe they say, yeah, we can't use it in the spelling bee because it's a word that every child's seen. Most children, not every, some children aren't watching every single thing. I guess they don't have, here's the thing. If you're a motor oil company, free advice. Actually, I probably have seen, friggin' ads from you too. But now that I've talked about you, clearly, next time I do a search to be like, have you thought about Vervaline? It's mid viscosity. It's the only mid viscosity motor oil. It's hypersynthetic. And I'd say, interesting. You've been listening into me, eh? So what was I saying? Oh, you don't need to listen to me. Also, no pressure to fall asleep. The reason the shows are about an hour is because I want you to have plenty of time to ease into and drift off at your leisure. Just like a guest, I say, hey, well, I'll be here talking. Don't worry about keeping me company. I'm here to keep, my company's kept. The company that's kept that you don't need to keep, right? Is that what I said? Like, I'm keeping you company. You're not keeping me company. So I'm just going to be here talking. And that's the other thing is if you can't fall asleep, I'm going to be here for about an hour. So if you can't sleep, you can queue up episode after episode. I'm here to the very end. I make this show because I truly believe you do deserve a good night's sleep, a good night's rest, some moments of comfort and solitude. And if I can enable that somehow, uh, this is an honor. It's something that's powerful. And if I can have a connection to that, just rambling and then talking about Doctor Who later. And you might say, Scoots, I don't watch Doctor Who. And I say, okay, don't worry. You won't recognize it. You'd say, was that a story, an avant-garde story about pencils? No, that was, Scoots was talking about, it says Doctor Who in the title, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I say, yeah, that's right. I'm just talking Doctor Who, but in a meandering, lulling, soothing way. And I think that's about it. You don't need to listen to me. No pressure to fall asleep. The shows are about an hour. Starts off with the intro. Then there's, the business intro, business, Doctor Who for about 45, 50 minutes and some thank yous at the end. And that's it. And give the show a few tries. 99.9% of listeners said it took a few tries before it started working for them. But what I really want you to know is I'm glad you're here, and I work very hard. I strive and I yearn, and I really want to help you fall asleep. Thanks again for coming by. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature, routine. If your routine changes, of course, I want to be here to help with that. Whatever's keeping you awake. So it could be stuff you're thinking about. It could be something you're experiencing physically, feeling emotionally. It could be that you're working the second or third shift, you travel, whatever it is. I'm going to take your mind off of that, or I'd like to try. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents, be going off topic. Because a lot of people ask, so let me just talk about creaky, dulcet tones. And that's a totally legitimate question people have. It's creaky, Creeky. I think you can hear that part of it. You say creaky, dulcet tones. That is what you sound like. Dulcet. Like a lot of times people say, oh, those are dulcet tones. Like those are like the sweet, sweet sounds, like the great crooners of the world. What was my point? Oh, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders. That's what I'm going to do is I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night and use those things. And if you're new, maybe I'll talk about that a little bit. But so if you're new, I guess what I'm going to do is send my voice across the deep. All you need to do is get in bed. I think I covered all that stuff. So if you're new, let me tell you a couple of other things. I'm glad you're here. I'm really just trying to create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, and get comfortable, get get some rest. Structurally, what to expect. So here's what to expect structurally if you're new. Or one thing is, if you're new, a lot of people say it takes 2 or 3 tries to get used to this podcast. It's like a reverse kind of tolerance, because some people say, oh, you build up a tolerance to that. And in this case, you kind of learn not to tolerate Scoots. It's like a tolerable level of background noise that you can tune in and out of, I guess, in some sense. So what do I mean? So this is a podcast you don't need to listen to. That's kind of one of the general rules we have around here. It's like, okay, first rule, you don't really need to listen to me. You can listen to me, but if you find it's better to lower me down to like a tolerable mumble, that's fine too. Or if you want to listen to me, that I make the show from beginning to end. So if you want to listen or you need to listen, you need some company because you can't sleep. I'm here to the end. And that also goes with the second kind of rule, or kind of like almost a general, I don't know like, what's a rule that you don't really need to follow? Guideline, I guess. Suggested guideline or suggestion. You don't need to listen to me. No pressure to fall asleep. This is one sleep podcast where I'm actually not here to put you to sleep. I'm here to keep you company while you fall asleep. However long that takes. For some people, it literally is a few seconds. And for some people, they don't sleep. They just listen. So you fall asleep as you wish. If you can't sleep, I'm going to be here till the very end. And you could queue up episode after episode if you need it. That's the purpose of the show. That's why I put so much work into it. And in some sense, I really think that is one of the reasons it works, is because I put so much work into it. You really don't need to listen to it, but you could listen to it. I don't know. But so you don't need, no pressure to listen, no pressure to fall asleep. Just kick back. Structurally, what to expect if you're here with me this far. Show starts off with business. That's literally the business at the top of the show and between the intro and the story is literally how we're able to bring the show to you for free. So I appreciate that's more for regular listeners. If you're new, that stuff's not important. The business stuff's not important if you're new. More see how it goes. So after the business is the intro. And the intro is like around 12 to 14 minutes or so of me rambling and talking about nothing. That would be ways to portray it. It's like it's a wind down or like an easing into bedtime. So instead of a quick intro, this is just my thought about it. Like if I had a quick intro, which I used to do, then at some point I accidentally stumbled literally on these longer intros. And then people said, I really like the longer intros. And so then we kept it, it just evolved over time. And what I discovered in a face-palming moment was if you get straight to the story, then it's like, oh, wait a second, I'm supposed to fall asleep during this. I got to start falling asleep now. Or, oh, boy, the story started. Maybe when's the story going to end or something? And it just makes sense. Like an essential part for me and a lot of people falling asleep is like having some sort of bedtime routine. This just packages like one part of it is like the wind down. So the intro is familiar. I try to explain what creaky dulcet tones are and the structure of the show. It just takes me about 12 minutes, which allows some listeners to ease into bed, some listeners to fall asleep. You're totally allowed to skip the intro, particularly like if you're a patron, it's easier because you get the story only versions. But if you're not, you just skip ahead to like 18 or 20 minutes or something. So those are some ways to use the intro. Other ways are that people listen during the day to the intro or the podcast to say, okay, I need a little break during my day. So the intro could be what puts you to sleep or what eases you into bed or what you listen to as you're getting ready for bed. Any of those ways, no wrong way to do it. Like I said, I've heard from people that don't even speak English at all, and they listen. And they say, geez, I just put it, I don't know, it just helps me fall asleep. And there's people that listen so low that it just is like me muttering a little bit. So there's not an incorrect way to just test it out and see what works for you. So that's the intro. Then there's some business. Then it'll be a bedtime story. Tonight it'll be a revisiting. We'll return to the cloud tower in the sky. And they have a new thing going, so that'll be cool. It's like a visit to, I don't know, you'll see if you, or you don't need to. You could see how it goes. But we did another episode like about a year ago with this one. So then there'll be some thank yous at the end. So it's the structure of the show. And you don't need to listen. Those are also some elements of the show, the long intro, nonsense that I kind of ramble. I don't make a lot of sense. Pacing. Some episodes are paced a little differently than other ones. This one I'm trying to get a nice slow pace going here for the people that like the super slower episodes. So you could also do, some people slow the episode down in their podcast app or rarely, but some people do speed it up. I think most people listen at one. Those are just things. Oh, maybe this will be my off-topic thing. Instead of creaky dulcet tones, it's like podcast apps. Now, this is a podcast. I guess it's also kind of a show. But so, like, the easiest way to consume the show is in a podcast app. And the only reasons I say that is it doesn't really impact me how you listen to the show. I just want you to be comfortable. Some of the nice things about podcast apps are two of the things for this show. It's like you can change the speed. So some podcast apps, you can go down to 0.8. I think like a couple of people listen at 0.5. To me, I've listened to it's just an out of body thing for me listening. But the great features other than that are that you can set a sleep timer. So if you want to set it at 45 minutes or 60 minutes, you could do that. But you can also, in a lot of podcast apps, create playlists. And so some listeners will create a playlist of 8 or 10 episodes, or patrons will create one with like a regular episode and then story only episodes, and then set a sleep timer, but it'll be for like 8 hours. There's also some podcast apps that let you start it at a certain point. So people that don't want to become a patron, but want to skip the story or skip to the story, you could just get it and set it to start at 18 minutes. So I don't know, the playlist thing in the sleep timer, the kind of cool features about podcast apps, like most phones come like Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts, are both free. Spotify, Radio Public are free. Pocket Cast is a paid app that's great. Overcast is a patron the app is free, but then you could support it, which I do. And I actually use all the apps because it's my job. So if you don't listen to podcast app, try it, and then you can subscribe, which is also free. And what that just does is it makes sure, like, when the latest episode's out, you could either set it to download the episode or not, or give you a notification or not. But it just makes it a little bit easier to consume. So it's just I guess that's a little bit about podcast apps. One way to listen to a podcast, there's other people that listen in a desktop app, and there's kind of higher level users or people that download it via MP3 and put it on an external device. That's an option too. There's some people listening on YouTube. I'm trying to think of what else, what other use cases I've heard of. I think there's other, some people might stream it through a browser. The only thing with something like that, I mean, the nice thing about a podcast app is if you download the thing, you can put your phone on moon mode or even airplane mode and still listen to the show once it's downloaded. Or if you're on a PLANE, or you don't have service, you can download the episodes. So just a little, I don't know. I don't think I've ever done a podcast, talked about the podcast apps in the intro before. So hopefully it's helpful to some of you, or even to regular listeners. You say, oh, wait a second. Yeah, let me set a sleep timer. I love that idea. Or let me make a playlist. Because some people also like certain styles of shows. So then you just make a playlist. If you say, oh, I really like the Big Farm in the Sky series, I'm going to make a playlist from that. Or, I prefer to avoid the TV style episodes. What you do is you just archive those or make a playlist that doesn't include those. Really cool. And most podcast apps are very intuitive, so it makes it kind of easy where you just Google, how do I make a playlist on this app? Podcast Addict, that's another popular Android app. That's also free. So I thought of one other thing about it. Okay, so you can skip certain types of episodes and make a playlist, check it twice. If you're a patron, you can listen in a lot of podcast apps to your bonus stuff right in a podcast app. But that wasn't what I was thinking of. I thought of one other thing. I'm trying to picture myself listening to podcasts. I don't know. I think it was playlists. You say, oh, okay, what else would people be surprised you could do? You can search. Now this isn't every podcast app, but I'm sure most of them will adopt this slowly. So when you're listening to this, your podcast app may already do this. I know in Overcast and Podcast Addict, you can do this. If you go to Sleep With Me on there, or you're a patron and you go to your patron's version of Sleep With Me, then when you bring up just that podcast, you're subscribed to it, you could search within the podcast feed. And I use that all the time, not just for Sleep With Me, but for other things. Because you say, what episode did they, like if it was an outdoor podcast, they say, what episode did they talk about waterfalls? So I'll bring up the walking podcast, for example. I don't think there was a waterfall episode. And then I'll say, then I'll search, well, was there a waterfall episode? Or 99 PI? I'll be like, have they talked about miso on there? And then I'll bring up 99 PI, 99% invisible. And then I'll type MISO, search, and then I'll say, it'll answer that. Then I'll forget like I did now. And I'll say, when I get done recording, I have to search again to see if they did an episode about miso. Or Plaid, you could check articles interest or 99 PI. So anyway, that's about it. That's a little bit about podcast apps, which I greatly appreciate because it really works well with putting it just aligns with the UI, the user experience, the user interface. Usually kind of aligns well with the idea of putting people to sleep. And me talking about tech, this side of podcasting apps, I can tell is sleepy gold. But you know who really is gold? I'm not being smarmy, is you. Like, I make this show because I believe you deserve a good night's sleep. And I hope I could help. I work really, really hard on this show because I'd like you to be able to drift off or at least feel comfortable and nice. And you say, okay, well, I'm in bed and I'm comfortable and Scoots is here to keep me company. So I really appreciate you checking the show out. If you're new, give it a few tries because I strive and I yearn to help you fall asleep. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, things you're thinking about, thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, travel, stuff like, so if things on your mind, things on your list, or things that, things that are listed, something physical, something you're feelings, for me, a lot of times it's a combination of those where the lines blur. I mean, I guess we're all, one big, I try to tell that to all the personalities inside me. I say, aren't we one big happy family in here? I don't know if I've ever actually said that, but one day I would like to achieve that level of self-enthusiasm. Is that what, I don't even want to say self-enthusiasm again because it gives me a whole, anyway, I gotta, if you're new, maybe I come back to that. I don't know. If you, what am I going to do? I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents, which you just witnessed. And that one was spontaneously superfluous. Wow, I don't think I've ever said those two words together. They just kind of fit. I hope I could get on like a Broadway variety show, also get talent, ability to sing and dance. They'd say Scoots and Barbara are here with this next number. Spontaneously, what did I say? Superfluous. They say actually, well, that was it's a superfluous Barbara. So it's not the Barbara. And I also tried to get Bet, but she was unavailable. Okay, so I'm a semi-voice across the deep dark night, lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones. I'm trying to create a safe place or a safe, friendly situation. And if you're new, it's not indentaneous. One time a teacher marked that on my paper, indentaneous. And they said because I was trying to get 50 pages out of a 30-page paper. So I tried to indent everything and then a double indentation. He said that was indentaneous. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I imagined that one. But what I'm going to do, I'm here to keep you company if you're new. This podcast isn't instantaneous. And what I mean by that is it takes a few tries if you're new for a lot of listeners too, because the podcast is a bit different. But even for there are some listeners where the podcast works pretty quickly because it's part of their routine. But that took time to develop, right? So our relationship won't be, some people it's instantaneous. Like my teacher, they say, I give this podcast an F or an NI, needs improvement. More in the podcast world, it's like, well, this isn't for me. If only I got those emails. I think those people are so well adjusted. They say, oh, this podcast isn't for me. I'll just move on. And I do have a site for the people that don't make that choice, but they say, this podcast, it's beyond needing improvement. You could go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you. But what was I saying? So give it a few tries, but also the structure of the show. It shows that it's not an instant thing. So we start off with a few minutes of business. That's how we keep the podcast free for everybody. Then there's a intro. Now the intro is like a show within a show. It's about 12 to 15 minutes of me kind of explaining what the podcast is slowly and never clearly being able to achieve that. But it's also for regular listeners, it's kind of ideally part of their wind down routine, where you could start listening before you get in bed or right when you get in bed as you're easing in, you're getting comfortable, getting cozy. Or, here's the thing, you could start it when you're brushing your teeth and stuff in the other room because you're not going to miss too much. But whatever works, now that I've been doing this for however many years, six years, I've seen a lot of people, some people skip the intro, a few percentage points of people, they just skip ahead to 18 or 20 minutes and then start there. Or they listen on Patreon, they just listen to the story-only versions. And some people fall asleep in the first few minutes, and then some people ease their way into bedtime. They fall asleep during the story. Some people listen all night. Some people, they turn the podcast on in the middle of the night. They don't start the night with the podcast. And there are listeners that listen during the day to kind of unwind or in the tubby. It's a bit different. The reason the intro is kind of long and meandering is to give you plenty of room to drift off. So there's an intro, then there's some business between the intro and the show. And then there's the episode. Tonight it'll be our episodically modular series, which the working title is The Adventures of Dr. Triangle and Isosceles. And so that'll be you could listen to that in any order. I think this will be the second episode. And then there'll be some thank yous at the end of the show. So that's structurally how the show is made. What else do you need to know if you're new? I'm glad you're here. That's one thing. I hope this can help you. And you do deserve a good night's sleep. And that's why I make the show. Other things to know, you don't need to listen to me. You may have already figured that out. But I tend to meander. I tend to go off topic. My logic is, it's neither logical nor illogical. It's like a Spyro Gyro or something. You see, well, it's like his logic has been, it's scribble logic. And I say, that's it. That's one of my top 5 podcasts, a Scribble Logic Cast, the podcast about scribbled logic and things interesting to scribble logicers. Also, Script Notes is ahead of that podcast, so I listen to that one first because I love John and Craig. But so, where was I? So you don't need to listen to me. Also, there's no pressure to fall asleep. This is a little bit, I don't know what the counterclockwise, but this is a podcast to be here as you fall asleep, to keep you company as you drift off. That I can kind of be at your side, walking or talking, and then you kind of just, you head off into dreamland. But if you can't sleep, I'm dedicated to you. Whether you fall asleep in 2 minutes or you're here to the very end. So I'll be here till the end of the episode, and then there's episodes after episodes for you. Because I know sometimes you just need a friend in the deep, dark night. And in some sense, that's really what the podcast is about. Like at bedtime, is you say, well, at least I got a friendly, like my boar bud, Scoots is waiting for me. And, you had a rough day being a human out there. And for me, at least, you could have a rough day being a human. Then you lie down. And like I said, for me, I have what I call brain bots. They're different parts of my personality or as different, I don't know, voices or whatever you want to call it. And as soon as my head hits the pillow, they say, what were you thinking? And I'd say, when? Well, let me get out my list. And he'd say, well, I thought we're working together. The ship that where everybody works together on floats well. Well, no one ever said that, and there's a good reason why. And you say, okay, well, I just want to get some sleep, actually. I had a long day. Well, yeah, I was watching all day. It was long, if you were doing better, the day would have been shorter. I know, but I'm just ready to go to bed now. And I think it'd be good for all of us if we, snuggle. What do you say we snuggle together and get a good night's sleep? Because we're kind of a team, right? In the end, we really love each other. And we're all in this together. Like I said, the rowboat without oars is just floating. What did you get, a waterlogged copy of Bartlett's Familiar Quotations? Yeah, I did, actually. It was coffee logged, not waterlogged. That's why my quotes are so off today. You really got me there. So anyway, what do you think about that? How about you come in here for a hug? And we don't have to snuggle. We could just lie. Well, what about that sleep podcaster? What if we just listen to him instead? We could all lie here together and observe him. And then I'll take, that would take my mind off of stuff. I don't know about you. Well, that sounds just sweet to me. It's as sweet as the tea in the boat that's rowing as the teamwork does. Okay, why don't you put away that coffee log, Bartlett's Familiar Quotations. Because that was Abraham Lillen that did that. Okay, well, that's great. So tell me about this sleep podcast. Well, it's this guy. He's a familiar guy. You might be familiar with him. He just tells a story. First, he does this intro where he tries to explain what the podcast is. And, because, a lot of people, they have these really smart, well-adapted parts of them that kind of have, like, their unifunction, and they tend to get bedtime because they're, because they finally, there's finally a quiet moment. They want to get some attention, and he gives it, believe me, he gives it so much attention. He said that, holy cow, maladjusted, he said one time, he said hail adjusted, because that's what, I think it's in this book that's coffee logged, though. So let me get this straight. There's a guy that made a podcast to entertain us, the great unappreciated brain and personality parts of the world. Yeah, he actually, I think he said, you put the humanity in humanity. And so he makes a show just to kind of take your mind off of, because you have a tough job. And so he said, I want to take your mind off of that. I want to be your bore bud. And let everybody kind of get snuggled in bed and get comfortable. and just kind of relax and do. So what do you say we do that with our human? Just kind of kick back. Well, I like that idea. So what's he going to talk about? Well, more or less, not much. You know, he talks about stuff. It's kind of interesting. But then it's also, you're like, hey, I don't know. Something about, there's like a triangle scientist and a isosceles, something. Ooh, you're right. It sounds kind of interesting. Well, great. I'll see you in a few minutes. Why don't you get comfortable? All right, so that's the show, and that's kind of like, I wish I could have that conversation with myself at night, and that's kind of what I'm here for, is to do that for you. To be your boyfriend, to be your boar bud, and to keep you company, because I do believe you deserve a good night's sleep. So if you're new, give the show a few tries, you know, see if it works, and that's it. I really am glad you're here. I really appreciate your time. And I work very hard. I yearn and I strive because I want to help you fall asleep. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations. Stuff like that that's keeping you up. It could be outside stuff. It could be, whatever's keeping you awake. I'd like to take your mind off of that. I think I said that. What I'm going to do, what I'm going to do. I was trying to think of something because I always say that. I said, what I'm going to do is send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones. I'm going to use gentle motions with my hands to create a safe place, kind of carving it out, smoothing it out, patting it. I'm rubbing it down. I'm saying safe place. Lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet, pointless meanders. I forget how circuitous logic, all those things. I'm going to send my voice across the deep, pointless meanders. I honestly forgot what I say next, but to take your mind off stuff and help you fall asleep, to keep you company if you can't fall asleep. And honestly, sometimes my brain runs out. They say, what was in there? What were we supposed to say next? I don't know, but I guess I'm supposed to kind of greet you. I did change up the order there. I think that's what threw me off, but I'm the podcaster who's naturally thrown off anyway. But I'm here if you're new. Or if you're a new regular listener, you might say, Scoots, this is going a little bit different. I say, yeah, well, we're staying calm. We're staying in the moment. I'm staying here for you to keep you company. Now, if you're new, a couple of things I'd like you to know right up front. This podcast is a little bit different. So we try to kind of sink in, relax, and kind of observe me with a little bit of distance if you're new. Because you kind of say, well, this doesn't make a lot of sense. This show defies logic. And I said, well, I don't really defy logic. I just noticed, is that Spock that says, well, that's illogical? Can you imagine, so Spock was on the original Star Trek, but I think he used to say, well, that's like Spock and Vulcans like logic. I'm pretty sure this is I guess a broad generalization. Excuse me, Vulcans. I don't know. I guess Spock would find me illogical, but actually the thing is you don't need to be a Vulcan to find me illogical. There you go. That's what I meant. If you're a human, you're going to find me, like you say, well, most people follow some sort of logic. This podcast, it kind of peters out, doesn't go anywhere, gets started, then slows down a bit. And you say, you're right. So if you're new, those are some things you could kind of, instead of, I say, well, I don't really define logic or expectation. I just kind of drive around it. I take the long way around. There you go. Like some people say, I take the long way. I say, well, yeah, I saw the logic and I drove. They said, well, that's the logical way to go, right? And they said, oh, did you say go right at logic? Okay. Well, I don't know, there's some grass in the road there, so I'm going to take this other path here in the middle, not right and not that logical way. just off that. Not off the beaten path either. That area next to it. Oh, that's not a path? Well, that's the way I went. So that's the way I'll go. Okay, so if you're new, though, let me get back to you. Sorry, I got lost in my, when I took a wrong turn at Logic, just like Bugs Bunny used to take a wrong turn at Pismo Beach. And as a kid, I guess I missed the heydays of Okay, here's a question. Was that just a joke, or did Pismo Beach have a heyday? Also, a lot of people. So Bugs Bunny, back before there used to be two big cartoon groups. There's the Warner Brothers cartoons, and then there was the company Disney. So you had the mouse, like Mickey Mouse, and you had Bugs Bunny. And I'm no historian, but and I think it was before my childhood, but even during my childhood, while Bugs Bunny was losing momentum, again, maybe to marketing dollars, maybe just to beloved, maybe because you could go visit the other one. But Bugs Bunny was another cartoon like figure that was really liked by kids, a little bit more acerbic and more of a trickster god than Mickey. No offense, Mickey. Mickey's more of a, aw, shucks, let me help you carry that suitcase. Or, oh, you got, like, Mickey's like, Mickey, you got great, I can't find a flaw with you in the opening of a sleep podcast. But Bugs Bunny was a little bit more of a, well, okay, so what was my point? I have no idea what my point was. Oh, Bugs Bunny used to take a wrong turn at Pismo Beach. And I guess I'll have to Google it. I thought that was maybe in L.A. or like somewhere, but then I said, maybe it's in Florida. Or maybe it's just a beach they saw on a map, and they said, that must be a great beach. Because as much as I love California, we have really nice beaches for sitting on and looking at the beauty of the ocean, especially in Northern California. But as far as swimming goes, which I associate with beaches, I mean, I think the Southern California's got that, pretty good. But you have to drive pretty far south. I think you got to get all the way down. I don't know. I've never seen, I'd have to see about like San Luis Obispo or something. I've never swam there. But usually you got to get all the way down to like Ventura County, I think, to get good swimming. But I don't know. So maybe they say, well, that's where Pismo Beach is, Scoots. And I said, well, I took a wrong turn at remembering Pismo Beach, Big Bugs Bunny. Anyway, what was this podcast is a bit illogical. That was thank you, Spock, for bringing it back. I guess I could hire Spock to just hang out while I'm recording and say, well, that was illogical. And I'd say, thanks, but let me, to rail in my meanders. Okay, so where was I? If you're new, structurally what to expect. The show starts off with a few minutes of business, and that's how we keep the show free for everybody, is the people that support the sponsors or become patrons. So that's a really nice thing, is like, shows communally supported by people that support the show. So that's why business is up front. There's also business between the intro and the episode. So there's a business, then there's an intro. Now, we're about 8 minutes into the intro, which is usually around 12 minutes or so of me kind of explaining what the podcast is and going off topic. And then saying, well, okay, let me try to bring it back. And so, yeah. So I guess I don't know what my point is. What the intro is. Oh, yeah. So, sorry, I was like thinking about, I was like thinking like originally I was going to talk about plants in this intro. And I said, well, I guess we're not going to be talking about plants this intro. Yeah, but so, yeah, thanks, Bugs Bunny. I get Bugs Bunny and who's that, Spock? I think they have teamed up. I've seen a cartoon version of Spock somewhere, like a comedic version, but that could have been somewhere else. I don't think Spock and Bugs Bunny have appeared together, but that's, it is within the realm of possibility. How about this? If you're going to Comic-Con or something like that, or some other con with cosplay that has, I don't know when the next Star Trek movie comes out, but, there's a new Star Trek TV shows. Oh, no, and, like, I don't know which if Spock's in any of those lineups, but what if you went to one of those dressed as Bugs Bunny? Like, let's say, let's just imagine it's a Star Trek con, like Trek Con. You go as Bugs Bunny in a like Starfleet uniform. Yeah, but then you at some point you take like your Spock dressed as Bugs Bunny in a Starfleet uniform. Too much? Okay. Oh, because I got to get okay. So the intro is a part of the podcast. It's not really efficient. It kind of it drives around the logic, but it's a part of people's bedtime routine. About 95, I think I can't remember the last statistic I said. Like maybe 8% of listeners kind of skip it or less, like skip the intro and go straight to the story. But for most listeners, they use this long intro, about 12 minutes, to get ready for bed, or they're already in bed and they're winding down. They're listening to Scoots. Some listeners are easing off in dreamland. And some like you are just getting comfortable and cozy. Hey, I'm glad you're here. Thanks again for coming by. So the intro is kind of a part of the show and a show within the show. And if you're new, some people can find it a bit frustrating because they say, are you going to ever start talking about Star Trek? And they'd say, yeah, I'm going to do that next in a little while. I'll be start talking about Star Trek The Next Generation. Been a while since I have. But yeah, so that's the structure. So we have the intro, then some business, then I'll talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, an episode. I'll talk about stuff that came up in the episode. It won't really be super reflective of the episode just because that's not my, that's just not what I'm good at. And it's not super sleepy. And then we have some thank yous at the end. So that's the structure of the show. Here's a couple other things. You don't need to listen. You may have come to that conclusion yourself, or you say, but really, some people turn me way down and some people listen to me at a mumble. But it's more like it's an optional thing. You can listen, but you don't have to. So you say, there's no pressure from my end for you to listen to me. Or remember, or you say, well, you can't miss out on this part where I like confuse Bugs Bunny and whatever, and confuse Pismo Beach, with Ventura Beach or whatever. So I say, oh, yeah, I guess you could miss that. Like, it's okay with me, right? If you fell asleep or you just kind of were drifting in and out. So no need to listen, but there's also no pressure to fall asleep. The reason the shows are about an hour or a little bit over an hour is because I want to give you plenty of time. No pressure. You drift off, you drift off when you need to. I'll be here to keep you company. If you can't sleep, I'll be here till the end. I don't make half a show and then start just droning on. I mean, I drone on, but it's with intention and ideally presence, that you could feel that I'm here for you to keep you company and to take your mind off of stuff. So no pressure to listen, no pressure to fall asleep. The reason I make the show is because, one, I've been there. Particularly lately, I haven't had the drift off issues, but I've had the just unsettled nights issues. We'll just leave it like that. And so I know how it feels, and I really, truly believe you deserve a good night's sleep. I want you to know, whether you're new or you're a regular listener, I'm glad you're here. I work very hard. I yearn and I strive, and I'd really love to help you fall asleep. And here's a couple of ways we keep the show going.